This morning I was listening to some psychotherapists who were saying their patients were very worried because in their workplace there were groups of people who didn't accept the measures required, the official measures required to be safe. They didn't want to use the alcohol. They didn't want to use anything to cover the mask to cover their mouths, and we were talking about this apparent denial that anything is going on. What would you say that this why does this happen when we have lots of evidence that effectively there's a virus that is taking away many lives? No.
Yeah, this phenomenon of people who are behaving in disobedient, reckless way, not following the advice to wear a mask outside. It's now the law in New York City. And who are shirking, showing a level of disbelief in the guidelines. And I think there's we have to ask, we have to understand this in two ways, that it's a deficit in the response of the people, but it's also a deficit in the guidelines that are being announced and the level of support that is being provided in terms of testing and contact tracing and clear messaging from our political leaders. Certainly, we've lacked clear messaging here in the United States from the White House. We're subjected on a daily basis to these briefings from the president. Already a few weeks ago, there was one television group in Washington State who said, we're not going to broadcast these as live anymore. And I think that was a very wise decision, because the job of journalism is to process and digest the information that's available out there. So I think if one trusts in the journalistic source, one would not be inclined to disregard the guidelines. But we have here in the United States, you probably have in Mexico, and I know elsewhere in the world as well, these tabloid publications that are functioning to address the 3 and 4 year old self in everyone, to come up with magical, clear solutions where blame is placed and it's not about you. You don't have to follow these guidelines. People are trying to control you. So it's associated with the conspiracy theorizing and the magical thinking that this is not required of me. It's quite deeply narcissistic and entitled to think that I can go outside and go to the beach with my friends and disregard the rules and guidelines. So it's frustrating and difficult to remain indoors, but I think we must hope for consistent messaging from our political leaders and seek out truthful accounts of what this virus is about, how deadly it can be, and what we need to do to protect our family and ourselves. It's not just young people; it's it's all range of individuals. It would be worth doing a study to find out if adherence to these guidelines is at all associated to attachment, individual differences in attachment. I'd like to think that people with a secure attachment recognize the limits that are in place and realize they're there for our safety and well-being, and that those who are behaving in a reckless fashion are perhaps more likely motivated by underlying insecurities.